culture for centuries. But were they thinking of a real place? It's controversial, but Friedel believes they were. The Mirador Basin and the sleeping giant at its center, El Mirador. Who built this great metropolis? Richard Hansen and his colleagues think they've found some vital clues on beautifully painted pots from around 700 AD. Their hieroglyphs list a lineage of kings with their dates of enthronement.
The first king that is indicated right here, the very first king is indicated on 7 Chuen and 19 Pope, the day name, the month name, and 3 Imish, 7 Yash, we have the Chak Chapat, who was the Lord of Kan. So the sequence continues for 19 successive kings in a row.
The dates made no sense. Then, fellow researcher Simon Martin had an idea. The Maya calendar is cyclical, repeating every 52 years. What if the pots were talking about kings from some earlier cycle of Maya time? What if they pushed the dates back 1,000 years, deep into the Preclassic? Richard's hieroglyph specialist, Stanley Günther, did the math.
And he called it an eureka moment. And lo and behold, we find that these dates do fit perfectly starting in 392 BC. So we think that this indeed is a sequence of kings that is a retrospective history, painted about 700 AD, referring to kings 1,300 years earlier.
If the theory is right, they have found a dynasty, 19 early Maya kings previously unknown to history. One of the kings on the pots is known as Great Fiery Jaguar Paw, the same king whose symbol seems to be emblazoned on the front of the temple at El Mirador.
We've got about 13 and a half yards into the building now, and that represents about 22 cubic yards of rock that we brought out of there. This is one of the really tough parts of my archaeology because it's hot in these tunnels. There's no movement of air to speak of. You're confined, it's dangerous.
It will take Richard weeks to tunnel to the place where the imaging system showed a cavity. But there are fascinating discoveries along the way.
For example, here's the handprint, the left hand of a person who put it right there. Put the stone and mud right there. You know, when you put your fingers in their handprint, it makes 2,200 years evaporate.
As Richard digs, more clues to the grandeur of Preclassic kings are coming from beyond the Mirador Basin. Guatemalan archaeologist Francisco Estrada Bailey is on his way to another Preclassic site. The rains have begun and the roads are virtually impassable. But the effort has been worth it. With funding from the National Geographic, it has led Francisco to a major find at another forgotten Preclassic city, Cival.
So we don't have just one large city like a Mirador, but a network of cities in the Maya lowland which existed in the Preclassics.
When Francisco discovered the main temple of Cival, he found that looters had dug away the back of the pyramid. Near the top, they left a small hole.
So I came here and I saw there was this opening in what looks like the front of the pyramid. And I stuck my hand here and I could feel it wasn't flat. There was a rise on the plaster. And I thought, well, maybe this is a snake carved on the front of the building, or maybe a mustache on a mask. And I thought maybe we should dig and find the front of the building coming the other way.
Francisco worked his way round to the front of the temple and dug a tunnel towards the center.
From the Luder's Trench, I was touching this wall, and I felt this rise here. And it felt like some sort of decoration. I could never imagine we would uncover something this wonderful.
Francisco believes it is the massive face of a sun god, 10 feet tall.
It's almost as if someone just made this yesterday, and it's incredible to imagine that we're touching this and we're looking at this just as people did over 2,000 years ago.
2 pairs of these masks may have flanked the temple stairway. Francisco thinks that they provided the backdrop for elaborate rituals in which the king impersonated the gods of creation. With godlike powers, these early Maya rulers could commission vast construction projects. Richard Hansen's team has discovered how they did it. He has found their quarries.
We excavated the quarries and recovered the tools found in the quarries and replicated those tools with our stone tool experts so that we could actually try to replicate the pattern in the stone. And this involved hafting the stone in a ways that we've determined they did it, and making the actual implements, and actually carving the stone with stone tools. The process of using stone on stone. The process of extracting stone and block, which made the same marks as they would have used anciently. And this is the exact sounds you would have heard 2,200 to 2,600 years ago.
Thousands worked back-breaking days in quarries like this, cutting and carrying stones that weighed up to 1,000 pounds. Nearby, thousands more produced lime plaster, which coated every building of every city. This was construction on an epic scale. The results were awe-inspiring. A vast metropolis gleaming red and white in the jungle sun. El Mirador. Perhaps 100,000 people. And at the eastern end of the city, the huge temple of Danta, possibly the most massive pyramid ever built. Long ago reclaimed by the jungle. Like all rainforests, the Mirador Basin is rich in life, but its soil is poor. Intensive agriculture is virtually impossible here, which has raised a puzzling question. How did the early Maya grow enough corn to feed the huge populations that lived in these jungles 2,000 years ago?
One of the secrets of the Mirador Basin were these marshland swamps that surrounded the basin. The original surface looked like this. It was grass covered with this type of grass, and we discovered that the Maya were essentially hauling tons of this material, thousands of tons of this material by human labor into the cities and building garden terraces.
In a village on the edge of the Mirador Basin, Richard has recreated the ancient garden terraces with their rich swamp soil.
They feed large populations and still have them being able to build buildings and have architects and astronomers and musicians and artists and all of the trappings of complex society in the Preclassic was because of this muck. This was the basis of their entire society and what gave them the power to do that. This muck generated the economic engines of complex society in the Preclassic.
We know now how they lived, but stones and earth can't tell us what they thought. What did the early Maya believe? Some 60 miles from El Mirador, a convoy of trucks snakes its way through the jungle. They are on their way to the much smaller city of San Bartolo. San Bartolo was never more than a minor outpost. Yet it is here that archaeologists have found a way to understand the early Maya vision of their universe.
This was an elite compound where the nobles of this site lived and administered all of the goings-on.
In charge is archaeologist Bill Saturno, also funded by National Geographic. He found the remarkable ruins of San Bartolo after a grueling trek through the jungle. Bill quickly discovered he was not the first to arrive here.
When we arrived at San Bartolo, it was completely clear that the looters had had a long and enduring presence here. Of the 100-some-odd mounds we have at this site, every single one of them is pierced at least once by a looter's excavation like this.
By a strange twist of fate, it was one of those looters' trenches that would lead Bill to his great discovery.
I arrived here late in the afternoon after a full day's hike without anything to drink. Tired and hot and frustrated, I just wandered into this looter's tunnel to get out of the sun. And as I sat there, just past where the light enters, I sat down in this pile of looter's dirt and shined my flashlight up on the wall. Saw this incredible thing, this mural. Then I just burst out laughing, to be honest. The improbability of finding a mural. It had been more than 50 years since a mural in this type of preservation had been found.
It is one of only 2 great Maya murals ever found. It is by far the earliest, and yet it is amazingly refined.
The lines just flow one into another. The colors are just vibrant, and the people are beautiful. They look like beautiful people.
To help unravel the mural's meaning, Bill invited artist Heather Hurst to make an exact reproduction. She had just spent 2.5 years painting the other great Maya mural found at Bonampak in 1946.
Could not believe what he'd found. Not only had he found a mural, but he'd found an early mural that was nothing like anyone had ever seen.
Bill's laboratory is in the old colonial city of Antigua in the Guatemalan highlands. Besides Heather, he's called in